Hello everyone, a very good morning and welcome back to the session on health and wellness. Today's topic is on lower limb flexibility exercises. Before going on into the topic, let us just understand the basic mechanism behind flexibility. In this image, I have compared a bunch of rubber band to the human muscle. Do you know why? For example, if you are taking three instances in which first instant is going to be a tight muscle or a tight rubber band which is termed inflexible, or a loose rubber band or a very loose muscle that is more flexible than required, and a normal rubber band to a muscle which is temporarily stretched when it is needed. So flexibility is the ability of a muscle to temporarily stretch when needed. Before the exercises, let us all see some lower limb flexibility tests.
Sit and reach is very similar to the traditional sit and reach, except that the measurement is performed on one side at a time. The objective of this item is to reach the specified distance on the right and left sides of the body. This assessment requires a sturdy box with a height of 12 inches. A measuring scale is placed on top of the box with the 9-inch mark even with the front edge of the box against which the student's foot will rest. The student removes shoes and sits at the test apparatus. One leg is fully extended with the foot flat against the face of the box. The other knee is bent with the sole of the foot flat on the floor. The instep of that foot is placed in line with and 2 to 3 inches to the side of the straight knee. The arms are extended forward over the measuring scale with the hands placed one on top of the other. The student reaches forward along the scale with both hands, palms down 4 times, keeping the back straight and head up, and holds the position of the fourth reach for at least 1 second. If necessary, the student may allow the bent knee to move to the side as the body moves forward, but the sole of the foot must remain on the floor. After one side has been measured, the student switches the position of the legs and repeats the process. Record the distance reached on each side to the nearest half inch, up to a maximum score of 12 inches. This limitation on distance is used to discourage hypermobility. The back should remain straight and the head up during the forward flexion movement. The knee of the extended leg should remain straight. The tester may place one hand above the performer's knee to remind him or her to keep the knee straight. The hands should reach forward evenly. The trial should be repeated if the hands reach unevenly or the straight knee bends. The hips must remain square to the box. Do not allow the student to turn the hip away from the box while reaching.
Hope you would have seen the flexibility test for the lower limb and checked your flexibility for the lower limb. Now let's just move on to the videos on flexibility exercises.
What is up, my bodyweight warriors, and welcome back to another follow along. And today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. There's a whole host of follow alongs on this channel which will be linked in a playlist down below, but today in particular we're going to be looking at a stretching routine for runners. So this is going to be focusing a little bit more on things like the hip flex of the quad, glutes and the calves, and a little bit of the hamstrings. So without further ado, let's jump into this routine. We're going to start off as usual on this channel with the good old hip swivel as a little bit of a warm-up. So you're going to start seated, both legs up. We're just going to drop both legs to one side, to the left-hand side to start with. Nice little stretch, try to keep the torso centered. Bring them back up, drop them back down. I actually get a lot of comments on this channel and people say, do you need to warm up? The answer is no, it's kind of built into the routine. So we're going to do some as a little bit of a warm-up. We're going to do 5 on each side. So that's 2. I'm just going to drop it down, pause for a second. You should feel a little bit of a stretch in the top hip, both hips of internal and external rotation. So that's 3. A couple more on each side. And then drop over. And we do one last one. On this last one, as we do oftentimes, we're just going to hold this 90-90 position, Lean forward, bring the torso, the chest right over that front leg, and just lean until you feel a stretch. We don't necessarily want to just round. We want to think about rolling the hips. So rolling the hips, keeping the chest up. Just go as far as you can over, feel a little bit of a stretch. We're not worrying about getting a crazy one at the moment. Again, just kind of easing on into it. So hold this for about 20 seconds. And then we're just going to do our final hip swivel to the other side. And again, chest up, lean, hinge at the hips. Feel the stretch in that glute of the front leg. I'm just going to hold this one again for 20 seconds. All right, so that's things a little bit moving. We're now going to come forward into a little bit of our plank position. We're going to take a look at just a couple of, again, warm-up positions. We're going to use a lunge. So we're going to come to a nice lunge position and twist around a little bit. I want you to bring both hands onto the inside and just try to feel you can drop that leg out and push that hip a little bit further towards the ground. So we're just going to work 10 of these, easing into it. So let the hip come out, let the knee come out, hip drops. So 7, 8, 10. Now, if you need a little bit of elevation here, get yourself some yoga blocks, get yourself something to give you a little bit of support. So again, lunge on the other leg, left leg forward this time, hands on the inside, just drop that knee out, push the hip forward. Just gonna do 10 of these, just pushing that knee out. A little bit of a stretch over the hip flexor, just as is needed. So one more on this side, that's it. And then before we stretch the calves, we're just going to do a little bit of what is called a sciatic nerve glide. So for this, we're going to start lying down on the ground. We're going to grab our right leg first, grab behind the knee, keep the knee and the leg about 90 degrees. We're going to flex the foot, we're going to lift the foot up as far as we can. Should feel a little bit of a pull. We're going to point the toe, come back down. So flex the foot, point the toe, come back down. We're going to do 10 of these per side, so that's 3. If you want to take this up a level, as you flex the foot and bring up, you're going to tuck the chin, and then point the toe, relax the head, come back down. So we're going to do one more, and we're just going to swap sides. Nice little ankle crack. Bring the other leg up. So again, just do that 90 degrees. Flex the foot, tuck the head, point the toes, relax the head, come back down. So just a thing to note while we're doing these, you can count till 10 yourself, is that when we do running and sort of athletic events like that, it is natural for the calves and the hamstrings to tighten up. So whilst this routine is looking at stretching, predominantly the hip flexors, the glutes, the hamstrings and the calves, also we don't want to stretch them too much, because that tightening up, that actually allows us to be more efficient with our running. So not that I run, but my girlfriend is a very good runner. And it can mess with your performance. So there needs to be a fine balance between the two, but a lot of people enjoy stretching and it can make you feel good, can help you reduce injuries. So this routine is for you. Last one on this leg. Lovely. Right, so we're just going to come back up. As we are in a seated position, what we're going to do is we're going to cross our left leg down onto the ground. We're going to lift our right leg, place it over the knee. So I'm going to turn to this camera so you can see a bit better. And then from here, drop our left shoulder down. We're just going to give this leg a nice little hug. So you should feel a nice stretch in this right glute now. We're going to be sat in this position for a wee while, so if you can't quite get the position right, take your time. It's fine. If this is too nice, then all you do is you're going to drop the shoulder down a little bit further. I'm just going to hold this position and take a nice deep couple of breaths. So we're going to be what would be kind of a pretzel-like position. So as you can, as you breathe out, as you feel yourself ease into the stretch, try to drop that shoulder a little bit further down. It's a good bicep flexing pose as well. Whilst you are in this position, and maybe you have some suggestions for some future follow-alongs, maybe you do another sport that's not running, but you want a stretching routine that's going to help you with whatever sport it is, leave it down below, leave it in the comments, and I'll do my best to make it happen. Right, I'm just going to hold this for another 10 seconds here. A couple of nice deep breaths. And then we're going to swap sides. So we're going to bring that leg over again. This time we're going to drop the right leg to the side. We're going to bring left leg over. Drop the right shoulder down. Squeeze the leg, give it a hug. And we can just hold and breathe. If you notice one side is tighter than the other, then pause the video, spend a little bit extra time on that tight side, should help even it out. But again, it's perfectly normal for it to be tighter on one side than the other. Just keep breathing, keep holding. You're going to hold this one for a little while. This one just needs some time just to help it loosen off. Not all of the other positions need that. This one though does. Right, so the next stretch we're going to move into is to help a little bit with decompression of the spine, especially the lumbar spine. This is quite a common one in runners. Get a lot of bouncing up and down on often hard tarmac. So we're going to come down into a nice little child's pose. We're going to push the knees out, and we're just going to let our body just relax in this position. Now, a really good option as well to help decompress the spine is just to hang from a pull-up bar, hang from whatever you can, door frame pull-up bar at your house. It's a great way to also help with that. But just while we're on the mat, this one is a nice intermediate step. Right, so we're going to hold this one briefly before we go into our first position. We're going to go into a left leg forward lunge. So left leg forward, we're going to get a nice little stretch on the hamstring. So really engage the glute on this back leg. Try to feel like the glute's pushing your hip forward. Try to stay nice and upright, not bend over too much. Get a nice stretch over the hip flexor. Now what you can do, I'm going to hold this for sort of 20 seconds, you can move around, find where it's tight, just try not to hunch over because that's going to reduce the stretch that we get on the hip flexor. What we're going to do is we're going to take our right hand, we're going to move it forward slightly and we're going to twist into that right hand side. So we're going to get more of a stretch down the lateral line, so still in the hip flexor, still facing the hip kind of forward, but we're going to twist slightly so we're facing at 45. So we should get a little bit of a stretch in the lower back as well. This is now going to be the challenging bit. If you can, we're going to reach our left hand behind. We're going to try and lift up that back leg and we're just going to hold in a bent leg position. Now, if this is too intense for you, that's absolutely fine. Just continue to hold the straight leg version. We're just going to hold this here so we get a nice deep stretch, a little bit more intense in the hip flexor and the quad. You can pull if you want. You can pull the foot all the way to the glute, but it's not necessary. We're going to let that foot come down. We're going to shift our weight onto the back leg and I'm going to come into what would be a slight hamstring stretch. and we're just going to transition in and out of that movement. So we're going to go forward into a little bit of a lunge, push the hips back, straighten the leg, pull the toes back towards you. So go back and forth, nice and slowly, nice pause in the stretch position. You'll find that this stretch with the toes pointed versus this stretch with the toes pulling back should be significantly more intense. Pull back. I'm going to do one last one, and then we're going to try and hold this position. Now, if this is too intense for you, by the way, if we've been doing this exercise, just grab yourself some yoga blocks, bring your body up a little bit. That's going to make the stretch less intense. So as I said, we're going to hold this position, pulling these toes back towards us. Right, we're going to pull that foot back. We're going to come back again into just a nice little bit of a wide child's pose. Come back down. Chill out for 10 seconds. And then we're going to come back up. This time we're going to do the right leg, so we're going to bring right leg forward. Going to go into our lunge position, stay nice and upright. Again, squeezing the glute on this back leg, squeeze that glute, push that hip forward, keep that chest high. I'm just going to find that stretch, move around if you want to. Again, nice and tall with the chest, don't bend over. Keep holding this position. We're going to put our left hand a little bit forward more. We're going to twist slightly onto our left hand side. Feel that stretch move slightly from the hip flexor into that lower back. And we're going to hold this position some more. Again, just the same as the glutes. If you notice one side's a little bit tighter than the other, maybe go back, revisit that tighter side, or just spend some extra time on that tight side. Right, this is where it gets challenging again. We're going to keep that hand down, reach our right hand back, lift the leg up, hold the foot as is needed. As we did beforehand, we can bring it closer to that glute if we want a little bit more of a stretch. This one should be a nice stretch over the quad and over the hip flexor. Again, it's quite intense, so actually for this one, the lower down you go with that front arm, the easier it's going to be because it's going to reduce the stretch in the hip flexor, or alternatively, we just let the foot go back a little bit. Alright, so we're going to let that foot come back down. We're going to shuffle back, we're going to put our right leg forward, find ourselves in our hamstring stretch, and then we're going to do, again, 5 repetitions, so go into a little bit of a lunge. Go back, pull the toes back towards you, hold that hamstring stretch, rock forward, nice, slow, easy tempo. That's 3, we're going to do 2 more. Again, if this is too hard for you, just adjust the intensity, sit up more if you need to. You don't need to push yourself more than you have to, but pushing yourself a little bit is a good thing. Come back, this is the 5th rep. We're gonna now hold this one, hold it in that pulling. So we're actively gonna be pulling these toes back towards us. We're not just gonna let the foot chill, we're gonna pull towards us. Right, so we're now going to finish up with a little bit of stretch for the calves in particular. So what we're going to do, come back, we're actually going to go into our best attempt at a downward dog position, but don't worry too much about the shoulders. Just lift up the hips as high as they need to go so you can get a good stretch. And what we're going to try and do is we're going to think about trying to move as far as we can our our hips over, so we get more of a stretch on the calves. And then all we're going to do is we're going to bend the knees, come down a bit, and then straighten the legs. So bend the knees, straighten the legs. So don't worry too much about pushing back into this full sort of downward dog position. Just get the right amount of stretch on those hamstrings, on the calves, bend the knees, and straighten the legs. We're going to do 10 of these. When you bend the knees, try to feel like you're moving your weight onto your big toe. Straighten the legs, get that nice stretch in the calf. 6. And last one, 10. I'm just going to hold this last position. And again, just try and move forward, go into the deepest sort of downward dog that you can. From here, shift forward. Just going to come into a nice bit of an upward dog position. Again, get a little bit of a stretch over the hip flexors. You can wiggle about if you want. Move a little bit to one side, a little bit to the other side. And then finally, I'm just going to move those legs out wide again. Drop back into a wide child's pose. And we're just going to stay here for 10, 20 seconds or so. 2 minutes, 5 minutes. Have a nap, an hour. Whatever feels good, because this is the last stretch of the routine. And that's basically it, guys. There is the stretch for, in particular runners, just focusing on the glutes a little bit, as well as mainly the calves, the hamstrings, and the hip flexor and quad to try and help loosen those up. Obviously, we can do additional stretches to this, but as I said, you kind of want to have some of that stiffness in the calves and the hamstrings to help your running economy.
I would like to conclude the session by quoting, "Today is a new day, fresh start. Think happy thoughts, exercise, drink lots of water. Don't just eat, fuel your body, be healthy and happy." Hope you all would have understood and also enjoyed performing the lower limb flexibility tests and some of the exercises and tested how flexible you are. If you have not done it, I suggest you to perform it at least once to know about your flexibility. Thank you all, and we'll all meet again in a new class.